Well, hello friends and welcome to Hoenn. We have completed our monotype challenges of the Generation 3 games, specifically Pokemon Emerald. Today I want to attempt a hardcore Nuzlocke of Omega Ruby using only bug types. I didn't play Ruby and Sapphire when we were doing the monotype challenges in Generation 3 because I knew we were going to do the Gen 6 remakes at some point. I love the Gen 3 games, specifically Pokemon Emerald, that's why I played it. We could have played in Ruby and Sapphire, but it was just so much fun running through the events of Pokemon Emerald. I know Ruby and Sapphire less, so doing the remakes is going to be very fun. We also have updated movesets, the Gen 6 art style, combine that with the fact that I love Gen 3, and I think this is going to be an amazing playthrough. I'm very excited to do it. Bug types are my second favorite types. Traditionally, they're known as very weak Pokemon. They have the lowest base stat total average out of all Pokemon types, but I think this run is going to be very doable. One thing that I typically don't allow in my runs is setup. Bug types are a little bit of an exception because without a little bit of setup, some of these battles I think are going to be near impossible. We're not going to use a setup to +6 and sweep strategy, at least not for most of the game, and I'm going to try not to set up in most of these battles, but I still want to leave the option on the table. Now, typically I don't talk about the encounters of these runs, I just play through the game and show you guys the encounters as we get them. However, when we did our Pokemon Emerald playthrough, I made some decisions that some people didn't like. Of course, this video is going up on the internet where everybody has an opinion, and that's okay. You're free to share your opinion, and I'm free to continue to do as I see fit because this is my channel. Now, the Wurmple that you can get on Route 101 is the very first encounter that we can technically get, and it has a branching evolution. It evolves into either a Silcoon or a Cascoon, and then it evolves into a Beautifly or a Dustox, respectively. If we weren't able to get the other Cocoon Pokemon after the Route 101 Wurmple evolves, I would not allow for the branching evolution. However, because they are two different Pokemon after they evolve, I'm going to allow it in this run. But I have to catch the other Cocoon in Petalburg Woods. So we're going to be able to play with a Dustox and a Beautifly. There are very limited encounters, and if I didn't allow branching evolutions and things like that, we would have 6 encounters, one of which we wouldn't get until after the 6th gym. So, with allowing the Dustox and Beautifly, we are going to have a total of 7 encounters. After we get the Wurmple, our next encounter is a Surskit on Route 103 at a 4% chance. It was a Pokemon we didn't get in our Emerald playthrough as it was a Ruby and Sapphire exclusive. I think that's going to be a great Pokemon, and it's going to be very important getting us through some of these Team Magma battles. So I'm excited to use it. Next up, after we get the second Cocoon in Petalburg Woods, we have a Nincada, a Nincada on Route 116 that has a branching evolution as well. Not really a branching evolution, just when it evolves at level 20, it turns into a Ninjask, and if you have a Pokeball and an empty slot on your team, you get a Shedinja. Shedinja is a gimmick Pokemon, and it's kind of cheesy. I did use it in my Emerald playthrough to get through a couple of very tough battles. I am not actually going to use it in this run. We're not going to use it. Nope. So then after that, we can get an Illumise or a Volbeat on Route 116. We of course have the Anorith Fossil, and then the last Pokemon that we get is a choice between a Pinsir and a Heracross, and you know as well as I know that Heracross is the best bug. Being a part flying type, or fighting type rather, is very nice. Of course, this is a Generation 3 remake, so we have 2 rivals, Wally and May, neither of which we can nickname, but in my head I've nicknamed them both Algorithm because we are trying to beat the Algorithm both in-game and in real life. The in-game Algorithm is a solo mission, and I've never battled either one of these trainers, so in the upcoming clips you will see how it goes. The real-life Algorithm, however, is a team effort, and I need your help. It's very simple. What you have to do, go down and hit that like button. If you're coming back each and every week, leave a comment, something simple, maybe #ZapWeekly. Very easy. Check to see if you're subscribed. I know a lot of you aren't. It helps out a ton and it costs you nothing. And then, of course, if you're watching these videos each and every week, hit that notification bell just so you get notified when they do come out. Of course, they do come out weekly on Sundays at noon Mountain Time. Unless you're a channel member, then of course they're live Saturday at noon. Last week, the video didn't go live until like 3 or 4 p.m. I was working. I forgot to hit the go live button. That is on me. But as a channel member, you do get a day early access. And then of course, if you guys are feeling up to it, share this video with anybody you deem fit so we can push these Nuzlocks out to a wider crowd. I do try to get the self-promo stuff out of the way early. I know some people don't enjoy it, but it's a fun little thing. I have the same joke in every video. Somebody told me I needed one to kind of mesh them together, and I've done that joke since very early on. I thought it was hilarious. I've been doing this for 2 years now, I think, and I still think it's hilarious because I have a pea brain sometimes. Trust me, if my videos get pushed and I get a sponsorship deal to like Raid Shadow Legends, just get ready because I'm gonna do a promo. I'm gonna sell out so fast it's gonna make your head spin. we're trying to turn this little hobby into something. So you know, I have no excuses. I'm just telling you, it's gonna happen. Back to seriousness now, we catch a Wurmple on Route 101 that we name Flick. It has a quiet plus special attack and minus speed nature. Plus special attack good, minus speed not so great, but with some EV training, it'll be fine. Because our Wurmple was caught at level 2, we have to stay on Route 101 and attack level 2 Wurmples to gain a few levels. Poochyinas and Zigzagoons are not really in the cards. We need to try to run from those, which sometimes we don't make it the first time. After every battle, we have to head to the Pokemon Center and heal. We're not really doing EV training here, we're just doing some level grind. After we get to the level that I want, we'll start doing some EV training with like the super training that we can do just to gain the special attack EVs easier because Ralts are only found at a 4% chance and I think it's just going to be a pain. We finally get to level 7 and Flick is going to evolve into either a Cascoon or a Silcoon. Doesn't really matter which one, but because of the name theme, I'm hoping for a Dustox, and of course, we get a Silcoon. You guys ever heard of the 50-50-90 rule? We're going to learn something today. The 50-50-90 rule is a rule that has been in my life forever, and it holds true every single time. If there is a 50-50 chance of me getting something right, there's a 90% chance I'm going to be wrong. Here I was hoping for the Cascoon so that we can name the Dustox Flick. We're going to name the other one Heimlich. It doesn't matter, but that's just how I wanted the name theme to go. And of course, if I would have named this one Heimlich, it would have still evolved into a Cascoon, not the way that I wanted. On Route 102, Surskit and Ralts can be found at a 1% chance. Hopper here has a docile neutral nature, and this took over 45 minutes to find this Pokemon. The Cascoon was relatively easy to find in Petalburg Woods. We nicknamed it Heimlich, and it has a calm plus special defense and minus attack nature. We have back-to-back Evos here, with both of our Cocoons evolving, starting out with Flick evolving into a Beautifly. And next up, of course, Heimlich evolves from a Cascoon into a Dustox. Very nice. I love these zoom-out aerial shots of these different towns. Rustboro looks so cool. We did this in Little Root as well. It's just a nice attention to detail. Just before Roxanne on Route 116, we get a Nincada named Molt. It has a lax plus defense and minus special defense nature. This is our last encounter before the first gym. Because this is Omega Ruby, Roxanne has one Geodude and a Nosepass. This makes planning for the battle a little bit easier. Now Rock Tomb does take us down to exactly half. A low roll there, crit would not have taken us out, but a high roll would have. Doesn't matter as we take out the Geodude and out comes Nosepass. This is a very scary Pokemon and my team is very weak to Rock. That's why Hopper did not lead this battle. Hopper is going to be the closer. Molt survives Rock Tombs much better, taking neutral damage. And now what we're going to do is go for 6 sand attacks. I know it's a little bit of a cheese strat, but I really don't have another strat. Hardens suck, Miss Tackle is very nice, and I'm hoping that Nosepass goes for Tackle with Molt out there, so that we can play around the different move sets, and we can bait in certain moves when needed. But we got to get this thing to -6 so that it misses the Tackles, and it misses the Rock Tombs, Rock Tomb being a lower accuracy move anyway. Leech Life does very pitiful damage, so I decide to swap, but into who? Ultimately, I decide to bring in Heimlich, and I'm hoping we come in on what is not a Rock Tomb, and it's a Tackle. Very nice. Confusion, unfortunately, doesn't do much to this thing either, as it is pretty bulky, and then Rock Tomb misses, which is perfect, so we're going to bring Molt back in to try to bait in Tackles, which we swap into a Tackle, so it's going for completely random moves. Flick avoids a Rock Tomb on the swap in, Absorb doesn't do that much, and we miss another Rock Tomb, which is great, or avoid one rather, and we can bring Molt back in. We get knocked down to 14 HP before our Oranberry activates, and now we can just do some damage to this thing. I need to get it a little lower than it is, and bring Hopper in to close out the battle. We're going to go for Fury Swipes, which is a pretty random thing to do, but with enough hits, we can chip this thing low. We get brought down to 19 HP after a crit, and Fury Swipes hits 3 times, taking this thing to what I hope is low enough to bring Hopper in on a Tackle. Yes, that misses, even better, and a Bubble finishes off the battle. As we hop on the boat and make our way to Dewford, Pico flies along with the boat. That is just such a nice detail. These games are awesome. Just like Roxanne, Brawly doesn't have his Emerald team, so he's got a Machop and a Makuhita. We have Flick with Stab Super Effective Gust, so this is going to be a 2-in, 2-out type situation, because this Pokemon is pretty good. 2 Gusts, 2 Pokemon gone, 2nd Gym Badge acquired. Exploring old areas and seeing the new details that they've put into them is just absolutely amazing. Granite Cave was pretty straightforward because we don't have the Mach Bike yet, so we can go see the ancient Groudon on the paintings, and that was super cool. In the Oceanic Museum, we get to meet Maxie. We are playing Omega Ruby for that added difficulty because Team Magma does have some Fire-type Pokemon as well as Flying-type Pokemon. The detail in Maxie's face there is just absolutely insane. I do love my top-down 2D Pokemon games, but I love Pokemon, plain and simple. Algo challenges us to a battle on Route 110, and she leads a Wailmer and I lead Flick. We do have super effective Absorb. It is low base power, and with a crit it does decent damage, but Wailmer sets up a rollout. That is very, very scary as we are quad weak. I switched to a Stab Air Cutter that gets the KO, and I didn't want to switch anything into the Wailmer using rollout. Combuskin is going to go down to a Stab Super Effective Air Cutter, and her last Pokemon is a Shroomish that is going to go down the exact same way. Flick has been a great counter to our rival here, so as long as we keep this Pokemon healthy and things don't drastically change, I think we've got a plan moving forward. You can actually guarantee the Volbeat encounter on Route 117 with some Repel manipulation because you can find this Pokemon at level 14. So PT Flea here has a hasty plus speed minus defense nature. I didn't get to use this one in my Gen 3 run, so I'm very excited to try it out here in Omega Ruby. Now against Watson and his electric types, he has a Magnemite, a Magneton, and a Voltorb in this battle. I did not allow Molt to evolve, so we maintain our ground type and our immunity to electric types. 2 Mud Slaps takes out the Magnemite, and out next is a Magneton. We're going to do the exact same thing, going for a very weak Mud Slap. It's just a little bit better Sand Attack. We don't have a great special attack, but it does some decent damage. Magneton is going to not be a 2-shot, and we do get confused and hurt ourselves in confusion, so to shake the confusion, I'm going to go ahead and swap out Heimlich. We swap into a Magnet Bomb that gets a critical hit, which is fine, and then we do a little bit of damage with Struggle Bug. Magneton goes for a Volt Switch at this point, which is fine, and that brings out Voltorb. I'm going to switch back into Molt here because we are completely immune to his moves. He just goes for Charge, and this is going to be a battle of attrition as we whittle this thing down with very weak moves. Watson has a couple of healing items, so we're just going to have to sit here and do what we can do. We do want to save 1 Mud Slap for the Magneton to finish it off, as it's not in healing range, so we might have to switch up for Leech Life at some point, but I can go down to 1 power point left of Mud Slap. Or we can switch it up and get a critical hit Leech Life, which is perfectly fine too. As I said, this just leaves his Magneton. It does outspeed and tag us with a Supersonic, but we break through and KO this thing with a Mud Slap. At this point, we have a couple of evolutions on the team, starting out with Hopper evolving into a Masquerain. We lose our water type and gain the flying type and the intimidate ability. Then I let Molt evolve into a Ninjask. We do technically have a full team because of the HM Mon, so we don't get the Shedinja. This game definitely explains where to go and what to do next much better. As we got into Fall Arbor Town, Algo brought us into this house to talk about Professor Cosmo and where we need to go next. It's pretty neat to see those changes, because going through the events of the Gen 3 games, you just kind of had to feel your way around. You also get offered some quick warps. If you talk to May here, she'll take us straight to Mauville instead of us having to backtrack, which is a pretty neat addition to the game, and I know this happens a couple of times. I do mash through some text later on and get pulled back to Petalburg before I'm really ready to do it. That was just a neat little detail I thoroughly enjoy. Atop Mount Chimney, we have a battle with Maxie. Mightyena is let out, and we lead newly evolved Hopper. We trade some Intimidates, and we fire off a Struggle Bug that doesn't get the one-shot. We tank the Assurance no problem, and Struggle Bug takes out Mightyena from there. Her next Pokemon is going to be Camerupt. We lost our water typing, so Bubble Beam is not Stab. We did pick up the Sea Incense, though, in Slateport, ensuring that Bubble Beam is a one-shot. That's one of the biggest threats off of her team, but of course her last Pokemon is a Golbat with Stab super effective Wing Attack. I do stay in because we can tank one and go for Air Cutter. Golbat opts to go for Confuse Ray. I do not want to deal with Confusion strategies, so I swap into Heimlich. We're risking a crit here, but we're never punished as we survive on 28 HP, fire off a Psybeam taking out the Golbat and winning us the battle. Flannery is one of the biggest threats as far as gym leaders throughout this entire run. Slugma, I set up Water Sport to weaken Fire-type moves, and it goes for a Light Screen. So now what I'm going to do is try to waste as many turns as I can. Air Cutter does about half, and Rock Throw doesn't do that much. I figure Struggle Bug's going to do a lot less, which it does. We get hit with another Rock Throw down to 40 HP, and this does proc Flannery to use a Hyper Potion, which is perfect. We can now take out the Slugma with 2 Air Cutters, and this wasted all of the Light Screen turns. Beautiful. Torkoal comes out, we hit it with a Bubble Beam, and we don't one-shot, but it tries to set up the Sun. Because we used up her Hyper Potion, we can take this thing out with a Bubble Beam, and that is the biggest threat on her team gone. Numel comes out, and it is quad weak being Ground Fire, so we can take this thing out even in the sun with a Bubble Beam. Very, very nice. Mashing through the text, Algo brings us back to Petalburg, so I haven't gotten my hands on the fossil yet. We will do that later. PT Flea learns Protect just before the level cap, so we can avoid the yawns, go for power-up punches during the Slacking's Truant turns. This is a very easy and free battle at this point. The reason I chose Volbeat over Illumise is because Volbeat has a better attack stat. The two Pokemon have the exact same stats. It's their special attack and their attack that's swapped. But we have Tail Glow, setup strats, we can do whatever we want. Both of these Pokemon can learn Power-Up Punch, which is really nice. So we're going to be doing some serious damage as this battle draws out. The first Slacking does finally go down after some back and forth, and we do gain a level, which is perfectly fine. Vigoroth is actually going to be outsped in one shot from a Power-Up Punch, and as his last Slacking comes out, we're going to do the exact same thing that we did to this one as we did to the first one. Protect on turn 1 to avoid whatever it's trying to do, which is a chip away, and then Power-Up Punch does half. Truant's perfectly fine. I go for a Protect just to be safe. It goes for Retaliate, and we can KO it with another Power-Up Punch. There's a couple of added storyline events where we get a Latios, and we're on this little island with Steven. We do have a team up against Team Magma here as well. The Camerupt is very scary. I was not prepared for this battle at all, so I'm going to quickly swap out PT Flea here for Hopper. Get off some Intimidates, and the Metang takes out the Coughing with a Zen Headbutt. Very nice. I'm hoping that Camerupt, yep, it goes for Earth Power against the Metang, which is great. Target Steven's Pokemon, not mine, please. A double up on Bubble Beam, Zen Headbutt takes out the Camerupt, and that is the Grunts defeated in Courtney, which is great. As I said, we get the Latios here. We learn about Mega Evolutions, which is pretty neat. As this is a Gen 6 game, I think we get the Mega Stone for the Latios as well. As a matter of fact, we can find one of our encounters Mega Stones in-game, so I think we're going to allow the Megas, of course, in the battles where Megas happen, which is the champion battle later on. I do have to send a Pokemon back to the box, so we're going to take the Latios, which is actually a great HM Pokemon. At the Berry Master's house, we can find the type weakening berries as well as the EV lowering berries, so we can really do some manipulations with our stats, and we can set up a few strategies for the future. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plant specifically Charty and Koba berries. That should help us for some upcoming battles. We need to start planning for the future, and the Berry Master's house is a very welcome part. Algo challenges us to another rival battle on Route 119, and the only difference here is I have Giga Drain that one-shots the Whalmer. Very nice. She still has an unevolved team, so Combuskin comes out next. With the rain, I'm not really scared of what this thing can do, but we one-shot it with a stab super effective air cutter anyway, so it doesn't matter. Our last Pokemon is once again a Shroomish, and it falls to an air cutter as well. That was a very easy rival battle. Backtracking all the way to the desert, we can get our hands on the Claw Fossil. I forgot you can't use Fly until after you defeat the 6th gym, so we had to do some groundwork. And I just noticed that your character actually wears the Go Goggles in the desert. That is so cool. So neat. And once you pop out to Route 111, they're gone. And let's meet the latest addition to the team, Rosie the Anorith, that has a lonely, plus attack, and minus defense nature. With the Battle Armor ability, we're going to be able to play around critical hits much easier. Now for Winona and her flying types, I had a couple of different plans. Our newest member of the team would have done great with stab, super effective rock moves, but we wouldn't have been able to KO the Skarmory. Because the Swellow goes for a double team, I decided to set up 2 Tail Glows. The +6 is not needed for 3 of her Pokemon. The Altaria in the back, we're going to be able to now 2-shot. We break through the +1 to evasion to one-shot the Swellow. Her Pelipper comes out and tries to delay the inevitable with a Protect, but it doesn't matter. A quad super effective Charge Beam takes it out. The TM for Thunderbolt is not available to us until after the 7th gym. I don't know why they changed that in this game, but you can't talk to Watson to do the new Mauville stuff until much later, so we're stuck with Charge Beam. The Tail Glow brought us to +6 very nicely, and as I said, we can 2-shot the Altaria. It's a very scary Pokemon. So we needed to set up and sweep. It's not something I wanted to do, but we had to for this battle. Now I chose to get the Pinsir in the Safari Zone instead of the Heracross. Was that a smart move? Probably not. Have I ever been accused of being a smart man? Also no. Dim here has a Relax plus defense and minus speed nature. That Mold Breaker ability might come in handy later. This is just a Pokemon that doesn't get used because it's overshadowed by the Heracross. Because the level cap is now at 45, we have the last evolution on our team with Rosie evolving into an Armaldo. The events in Slateport Harbor are now Team Magma instead of Team Aqua like it was in Pokemon Emerald. There's a very big change here though. Instead of just jumping into the water to board the sub, these guys actually board the sub, then it goes underwater and it leaves. That's a nice attention to detail. We of course didn't have to battle some grunts, but these Team Magma grunts at this point are very easy for our team to deal with. I did not know this, but as we were traversing Lily Cove, we are forced into the battle with our rival. We do have Rosie up front, which is perfect, as she leads a Swellow, a new addition to her team. As I said, I was not prepared for this battle, so we're going to do this one off the cuff. Luckily, we take neutral damage from Flying-type moves, and we do finally connect with a Rock Tomb to take out the Swellow. She actually has fully evolved Pokemon at this point, unlike in Pokemon Emerald. So we need to swap when the Wailord comes out, and we bring Flick in on an Amnesia. That really sucks, because now Giga Drain does a lot less damage. Another Amnesia is very annoying. Giga Drain's going to do even less damage here, and Wailord goes for Rest. So it's just a little bit of a battle of attrition. We could swap up our moveset, but Giga Drain is still doing enough damage, and it's of course going to keep us healthy if we were taking any damage. Wailord does not get taken out from a 3-shot and goes for a Rest again. We need a critical hit to end this, and maybe I should swap up to Bug Buzz or Air Cutter, which I finally do, getting a little bit smarter there, and Air Cutter still doesn't do that much damage. Okay, let's try Bug Buzz. Bug Buzz connects and gets a crit. There we go. That's one problem out of the way. Blaziken is nice to see. She fully evolved her starter, but we one-shot it with a stab super effective Air Cutter. My little bug here taking out your beastly fighting chicken. Her last Pokemon is a Breloom, which is very weak to flying type moves. We miss one. Okay, so we get hit with a Mach Punch for priority, then we take it out. Is that sub a Camerupt? It is a Camerupt. It definitely is a Camerupt. I couldn't quite tell. The details in this game are just phenomenal. Now, Tate and Liza have a Lunatone and a Solrock, and that is it in this game, so I lead with my two hardest hitters, Rosie and Flick. We should be able to one-shot both of these Pokemon, no problem, with some Bug-type moves. Bug Buzz takes out the Lunatone as I thought it would, and Solrock goes down to a Bug Bite from Rosie. Yeah, it was a critical hit. I don't know if that mattered, but it doesn't matter. That was a very easy Tate and Liza battle. On the Seafloor Cavern, we have another battle with Maxie, the final one of this run. We can take out the Mightyena with a Bug Buzz from Heimlich, and out next for her is a Weezing. An odd choice, but we can two-shot it with Psybeam. Unless it goes for Explosion, which luckily we tank on 11 HP. We almost lost Heimlich there, but Heimlich did its job. This is probably the last time we're going to see this thing in battle. We're going to swap to Rosie as the nasty Crobat comes out. We tank the Acrobatics very nicely, taking neutral damage. We have to tank another one because we're outsped, but with the help of the Wide Lens, Stone Edge connects and one-shots. Our Camerupt is the last Pokemon out. It does not have a Fire-type move. It does have a Rock-type move, which is not Stab, and this thing does like to set up with Yawn. So we're free to stay in and go for a Stone Edge, which connects. We get tagged with a Yawn, and I'm going to swap it up for an Earthquake here that's 100% accurate to take out the Camerupt. Now we have to take on Primal Groudon. It has Desolate Land, so our Water-type moves will not attack it. We are immune to two of its moves. However, it can easily KO Hopper here, so I need to do some damage. Seeing the Groudon go for rest is perfectly fine because we can almost three-shot it with Air Slash. This was a very risky thing that we did here, but we come out the other end unscathed as we never took a tick of damage. So, who's the better Pokemon? Hopper. Hopper's the better Pokemon. There's some really cool cutscenes here as we don't have Rayquaza to help us with the Groudon or the Kyogre in Alpha Sapphire. So, very neat. We also get to see some of these aerial cuts from these different towns as the sparkles come down. It's just so great. These games, I've had so much fun playing so far. Wallace is the 8th and final gym leader, leads a Love Disc as I lead Flick. Now we do get outsped and hit with an Attract, and of course we stay immobilized by Love. We then get hit with a Water Pulse that we tank very nicely, and we luckily don't get confused. We break through the Infatuation and KO the Love Disc with a Giga Drain. The biggest threat on his team is his Melodic, and it comes out next, and we do half with Giga Drain, and then with the held Yachi Berry we take less than half from an Ice Beam. We take out the Melodic with a Giga Drain, gaining most of our health back, and his last two Pokemon are non-threats. He has a Celio, and of course a Whiscash. Celio goes down to a Giga Drain, and Whiscash is quad weak, so it's going to fall to a single Giga Drain as well, and that is 8 gym badges in our pocket. Time to make our way to the Elite Four. Oh wait, Seaking. I forgot about Seaking. We got to take out the Seaking. Oh, it sets up a Rain Dance as we went for Giga Drain. That still has a Hyper Potion, so Wallace goes for a Hyper Potion as we switch it up for a Bug Buzz. Okay, perfectly fine. We take it to low health. It doesn't matter what we do here. Oh, we get outsped and hit with a Waterfall down to 18 HP. Oh my god. That was scary. I completely forgot about the Seaking. We still win. On to the Elite Four. Now at the end of Victory Road, we have to battle Wally. We lead Hopper, and we taunt Hopper Ice Beam that we got from the abandoned ship, backtracked all the way for that thing, and we one-shot the Altaria. As Magneton comes out, I decide to go for Bug Buzz to break this thing sturdy, but then seeing how much damage Bug Buzz does, after getting tagged with a Screech, we just stay in to take this thing out. Very nice. The next Pokemon that comes out is the Delcatty. I don't want to stay in. What I need to do is swap into Molt and let Molt set up, and then sweep the rest of the team. Disarming Voice does minimal damage as we swap in, and then we're going to go for a single Swords Dance. With Baton Pass and Speed Boost, this Pokemon is a great setup Pokemon. X-Scissor then takes out the Delcatty, and now we are primed for the rest of Wally's team. Roselia comes out next and is going to fall to a stab super effective Aerial Ace, and his last Pokemon is the Gallade. That is going to Mega Evolved. We did get Poison from Poison Point, which is a little bit annoying, but Gallade comes out and Mega Evolves. It does not matter with that +2 to our attack. We should one-shot this thing with Aerial Ace, which we do. And here is the team all leveled up and ready to take on the Elite Four. Starting out with Dim the Pinsir with X-Scissor, Earthquake, Swords Dance, and Brick Break. Our starter Flick the Beautifly with Shadow Ball, Giga Drain, Bug Buzz, and Quiver Dance. PT Flea the Volbeat with Bug Buzz, Play Rough, Tail Glow, and Power Up Punch. These moves, of course, are subject to change as we have picked up some TMs. Rosie the Armaldo with Earthquake, X-Scissor, Strength, and Stone Edge. Molt the Ninjask with Aerial Ace, Baton Pass, X-Scissor, and Swords Dance. And last but certainly not least is Hopper the Masquerain with Ice Beam, Air Slash, Bug Buzz, and Quiver Dance. Up first for the Elite Four is Sydney and his Dark types. I decided to lead Dim against the Mightyena, and even with the -1 from Intimidate, we can still one-shot sweep with X-Scissor from every single one of his Pokemon. A Sucker Punch does a little bit of damage. We are going to take some chip from Fake Out and Rough Skin going forward, but we're never in any danger as we simply click A to defeat his team. Heracross technically could have walked through the first 3 Elite Four members with a combination Brick Break and Shadow Claw, but I wanted to see what this Pokemon could do, and I have plans for Dim in the final battle. You guys will see why I chose this Pokemon over the Heracross once we get that far. But right now, a great showing from Dim as he's knocking out all of Sydney's Pokemon. The Cacturn sets up a spiky shield, which I didn't anticipate, but no matter, we do finally take it out, and that is Sydney defeated. Up next is Phoebe and her Ghost types. She leads a Dusclops that likes to go for Confuse Ray, and I lead Flick. I cannot one-shot the Dusknoir with Shadow Ball, so we need to set up a single Quiver Dance, tag with Confuse Ray, cure it off with a Person Berry, and now we're going to sweep her entire team. Shadow Ball takes out the Dusclops. She does bring out a Sableye. We do have Play Rough on PT Flea, but I don't want to swap around. We just go for a Bug Buzz that is Stab and does get the one-shot. Very nice. Dusknoir comes out, and as I said, we needed the +1 for this Pokemon. A Shadow Ball connects, and we take it out. The rest of her team is easy one-shots. She was never really a huge threat. The first Banette goes down to a single Shadow Ball, and her last Banette is going to go down the exact same way. Very nice showing from Flick throughout this entire run. For Glacia, I've got Dim back up front, and we're going to do a little bit of a setup and a sweep. I'm just going to set up a single Swords Dance. That should be enough. The Swords Dance is just to ensure that we KO all of the Pokemon, as a couple of them were at range. The Glalie are not arranged with Brick Break. The Walrein was, and I don't know that we KO the Frostlass. I never did a calculation. So we just set up, and we are going to ensure that Earthquake one-shots. We just shake this, whatever that thing is, until it goes away. And then, of course, she brings out another one. It is nice to see 2 Frostlasses on her team, as opposed to the double Celios that we saw in Pokemon Emerald. Her Walrein comes out. This is the reason I set up to +2, because we can one-shot it with a Brick Break. If we had Heracross, that would have been Stab, and it would have easily one-shot without a setup. But as I said, I have a plan for Dim. You just gotta trust the process. Our last Glalie goes down, and we're on to Drake. 4 of Drake's dragons are quad weak to ice. I could have set up with Molt and swapped into PT Flea with Play Rough, but we're relying on a less than accurate move where Ice Beam is 100% accurate and can one-shot 4 of his 5 Pokemon. The only real threat on his team is his Kingdra, but there again, my team is so superior, it's not that big of a threat. Stab Bug Buzz does over half. We tank an Ice Beam very nicely, and we can KO the Kingdra with 1 more Bug Buzz. The rest of his dragons are going to go down because they're outsped and one-shot with quad super effective Ice Beams. This Pokemon has been phenomenal throughout the entire run, and I really wish we could have used it in Pokemon Emerald. It really changed up our strategies and definitely came into its own throughout the run. Salamence goes down to an Ice Beam, and we're on to the champion. Against champion Steven, I lead Molt. My plan is to set up and try to bait a Toxic so that we can swap in and not be poisoned, which happens turn 1. Because we got Toxic and I know this thing's going to go for Aerial Ace, I just set up another Swords Dance to get another speed boost, and with a Koba Berry we take very minimal damage. Now with the +4 to attack and the +2 to speed, we're going to Baton Pass out into Dim. Dim is holding the Pinsirite, I think it's called, and we don't want to use that just yet. We want to go ahead and take out the Skarmory with a Brick Break, which we don't quite, so we have to tank 2 Aerial Aces down to 46 HP, which is a little annoying. What we're doing here is we're baiting in the Aggron. We're going to one-shot this thing with an Earthquake because of Mold Breaker breaking through the Sturdy. Now that the Aggron is down, as the Cradily comes out, we can Mega Evolve here and start one-shotting the Pokemon. It is at this point I realize, however, that the Metagross in the back that is going to Mega Evolve has Bullet Punch. So we're potentially dead to that, but it's really cool to see a Mega Pinsir in these runs, knocking out the Cradily and Armaldo with Earthquakes respectively. Very, very nice. This was my plan, the whole reason I grabbed this Pokemon. Claydol has Levitate, so it's going to go down to an X-Scissor, and this is a very nice showing from Dim as we just have the Metagross to deal with. As I said, this thing is going to Mega Evolve. Please don't go for Bullet Punch. Please don't go for Bullet Punch. Please don't go for Bullet Punch. It didn't go for Bullet Punch. We one-shot. We win. Beautiful. And we did it deathless. Oh my goodness. Just like with every run, this one was extremely fun. I say that at the end of every run, but this one I had so much fun doing, and it was by far one of my favorites. I can't pinpoint a single run that is my favorite, because they are all so much fun. The planning, the grinding, the different strategies, all the stuff that you have to do in these Nuzlocks is what I love the most about them. It's why I've been doing it for 2 years, and it seems like it's only been a couple of weeks. We got to use some really great Pokemon, some old favorites, and of course using the Pinsir with the Mega Evolution was great. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and if you did, you know the routine. Leave a like, leave a comment, consider subscribing if you've made it this far. As I've said every week before this one, thank you guys for the continued support. Without you, it would just be me sitting in my basement talking to my wall. I mean, that's what it is, but essentially you guys I know are going to watch this video and we're going to have some interactions as the video comes out. It's what gets me here doing this each and every week. It's absolutely amazing. We set some goals for ourselves and we met those goals, and now everything that we're working towards is just to make this better, polish up things, and turn a hobby into something real. And you guys are making that a reality for me, so I cannot thank you enough. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one.